What's up, folks? It's your boy Chicago again, also known as Tim in the corner. Today, we're going to be discussing what is obviously making national, if not world news, and that is the beginning of the trial of Derek Chauvin. He is the one that is being accused of murdering George Floyd. And we're going to get into this in detail, and I'm going to drop this gem on you. But as normal, I'm going to go ahead and ask that you start out by subscribing to the channel if you have not subscribed. And after the video is over with, you may not like what I'm going to say because I'm going to be on both sides of this issue, and I'm going to, paint a picture that probably needs to be painted, and it might come out in the trial. Certainly will affect how people feel about this. So if you don't like what I got to say at the end of the video, feel free to hit dislike and drop your comment, and I definitely will respond to that comment as I always do. Now let's get into it. George Floyd, 46. We know he was killed back in May 25th, last year of 2020. Most of us have seen the video of the officer kneeling on his neck while several bystanders and witnesses pleaded for him to get off. By the time he got off the guy's neck, the guy was lifeless. So be it. We know he passed away. Let's just be real. There's going to be no winners in this. There's absolutely going to be no winners in this. And what I mean by that is, regardless of how this is decided at the end, there are people who just simply do not like police. So they automatically look at this. I want this guy, hung. I want this guy executed. That's not going to happen. And it's the same way on the other side. There are plenty of people who take pleasure in seeing the demise of a black guy with a criminal record at the hands of police. I mean, there's no other polite way to put that. George Floyd was not a saint. I mean, you've seen videos. I mean, we've went back and forth about Candace Owens and all that, but she wasn't lying. The guy was not a saint. None of that. Absolutely none of that has anything to do with his death. But in America, we tend to be a very vengeful society, and we believe in harsh punishments. And, George Floyd committed a lot of crimes. I mean, there's a reason why there were states that had 3 strike laws. There are plenty of people who believe if you commit certain crimes or you commit too many crimes, it is perfectly fine to do away with you. So that's what 3 strike laws are about. That's what, lethal injection, electric chair, all that shit. All of that's about doing away with somebody we think is just a louse on society. And George Floyd, I mean, he has a fairly lengthy rap sheet. Now, that's not to say that the guy was not trying to get his life together or any of that. I'm just simply saying that when you have a rap sheet, there are plenty of people who are totally fine with whatever happens to you. They want you gone. And yeah, George Floyd, one of his crimes is actually posing as a water department worker and barging into a woman's apartment with a gun. And he did serve prison time for that. Now that's 2007. His death is in 2020. He did his time. So it should be relevant, but let's just be real. Like I said, if you're a bad guy, people want bad things to happen to you, and that is something that the police also know, which is why, if you notice, anyone that the police are accused of being too harsh on or, get a brutality charge, first thing they do is start digging in the guy's record, what's called dirtying the person up. I mean, you take the Trayvon Martin's case where you're talking about a young person, 17 years of age. I won't say a child, but a very young adult. And he didn't really have any significant involvement with the law. Truancies here and there, smoking marijuana. They dug all of that up. They even dug up that he was lying to officials at his school. They found anything they could find on that guy to, I guess, ease the fact that he was wrongfully killed or that he may have been wrongfully killed. And that's the way it is. I mean, you bring any of these guys up, if you do something and the police is accused of treating you wrong, they're going to vomit up everything you did. And like I said, George Floyd was killed in 2020. And here even I am trying to be on both sides of this issue, bringing up stuff that happened in 2007. That's 13 years prior, after he's done all of his time. So the issue becomes, can they find impartial jurors? Now, they're expecting to be selecting jurors for about 2 to 3 weeks. They're expecting the open statements to take place on March 29th. So here today is, what is this, March 8th? So you're talking 21 days from now. So 2 to 3 weeks they're expecting it to take to select a jury. And yeah, they're expecting this to begin on March 29th. The question is, can you find anyone that does not know anything about what happened in Minnesota? I mean, it obviously made national news, if not world news, because, in fact, it did make world news because of just the heinous nature of watching a guy literally plead for his life, tell you he's having trouble breathing, and then ultimately you watch a limp body being picked up. So you literally are watching a man die. That's going to have an effect. Even, I mean, I suppose even if you're in a war zone, seeing something like that is it's going to have an effect on you, and it did have a chilling effect. So finding an impartial jury or juror can be very difficult. My question, and maybe some of your questions, would be, why wouldn't you plead out on something like this? Because if you did something like this to a cop, or even if you broke in a store or broke in someone's house and you were caught on video doing something like this to another citizen, most likely, even if you had highly paid legal counsel, they would be probably advising you to plea so that you could maybe restore some of your life or get a lower sentence, because it looks bad, But being a police officer, there are a lot of mechanisms that give you a one-up on the average person. And one of those is that you're a cop and you're dealing with a guy with a lengthy criminal record, like I was talking about. Not to mention, in being fair and being impartial on this, George Floyd was resisting arrest, and he was caught in the commission of a crime. We can argue all day back and forth that he certainly did not deserve the outcome of that. But it is the job of law enforcement to detain you if you're caught or if you're involved in a crime. I mean, he was involved in passing counterfeit money, and they were trying to simply put the guy in the back of the police car, and he was resisting arrest. So you would have to subdue the guy. 9 minutes on the back of a guy's neck is, in my opinion, unacceptable. And we'll see how the jury feels about that. But he is pleading not guilty. Here's something that is really big. One reason why I brought you the video. Because when you look at cases like, I would bring up Trayvon Martin's again. And I would also bring up Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha, who was not a cop, but he was involved also in shooting three protesters, I believe he shot and killed. He killed two and he shot three. His case is also another one that will be coming up soon. But the reason why I'm bringing these up, and I'm bringing up Trayvon Martin, is because I believe that, particularly in Trayvon Martin's case, he was overcharged. George Zimmerman was overcharged. So as to, we can potentially satisfy those who want George Zimmerman to be held accountable, but we can charge him in a way that, there's a possibility that he may be found not guilty. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, not to argue the George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin case, or even the Kyle Rittenhouse case, is that in this case, Minnesota actually created a much bigger net. They charged George Zimmerman just with, I believe they charged him with first-degree murder or something of that nature, so that, there were other lesser charges that they could have charged him with that have a smaller burden of proof. They do have a smaller sentencing guideline, but you would have probably got some time out of him. But they only charged him with the top, and as a result, he was able to be found not guilty and be acquitted. In the case of Derek Chauvin here in Minneapolis or in Minnesota, they're charging him with a variety of crimes. And what I mean is they're creating a much bigger net so that, they're throwing it against the wall, and in this chance, there's a greater chance for something to stick. What I mean by that is they've charged him with second-degree murder. Now, that has a maximum of 40 years, but nobody would expect that to happen. They're saying probably about 15 years. But in addition to second-degree murder, they're charging him with lesser manslaughter. And now, they just stated, I saw this on ABC News this morning, is that they've also, is the judge, I believe, also opened the doors and stated that they can also go after him for third-degree murder. And now, by no means am I a legal scholar, but I'm going by, what the researchers said and what I've heard on other news outlets. And that is that under the third degree, they do not have to prove he intended to kill George Floyd, which would sound like they would be able to say that he's responsible for the person's death, even though he did not intend to do it. Similar to if you're, you're trying to move something out of your apartment window, somebody happens to be walking under and you drop it on their head and kill them, and you didn't properly secure the load or something of that nature. You didn't do it intentionally, but you are responsible for it. So it sounds like they've thrown out enough charges that they can get them in that area where it's not outright, attempted, outright cold-blooded murder where you just got out of your vehicle, knew from the start I'm about to kill George Floyd, which I do not believe that was the case. I don't think he intended to kill the guy. I think he intended to dominate the individual. After Floyd resisted arrest, and then you got a whole crowd of protesters and bystanders and witnesses chanting all kinds of vile things at the police. I believe he stood on the guy's neck to demonstrate to the crowd, I'm the boss here. Damn what all you guys are saying. I'm the boss. I got the guy subdued. Now what? And he did it too long. He did it too long and killed the guy. That's what my personal opinion is. Now, you may have a totally different view. Like I said, I know some of you guys believe all cops are racist and they just want to kill black people. And there are some of you guys who believe the guy died of fentanyl abuse and, the cop was not responsible at all. And I'm saying this because I've heard the entire spectrum from individuals I've talked to over the years or over the months since this has happened. I truly believe that, he did not have any intention to kill the guy, but he did everything to make it happen. And he did that part of it deliberately. So, my guess is he should be held to some type of accountability. He is law enforcement, so all of that life in prison, 40 years, but that's not going to happen. Certainly not when you're arresting a bad guy that was resisting arrest just a few minutes earlier. They're not going to get a guy life. I would be very surprised. Anyway, to get deeper into it, they already have enacted the National Guard. They're expecting a mess down there, a potential mess. They got the National Guard out. They got razor wire. They got barbed wire fences. There's limited access to the courtroom. But a significant part of this will be live streamed. So you will see what's happening. On its face, you would probably expect the guy to receive a conviction. But at the same time, like I just told you, there are a lot of people who believe a bad guy getting killed deserve to be killed. So if you get a juror member like that, they're going to give the cop the benefit of the doubt, and you never know what could happen. I would say Rodney King is a really good parallel to this, where once again, you have a bad guy. No doubt Rodney King was a bad guy. That is indefensible. He's driving through streets at high speeds, putting all sorts of lives at risk. And when they finally catch up to him, he jumps out of the car. So there's no doubt this is a bad person. But similar to George Floyd's case, the response is what we're litigating, and that is overkill, where you have a bunch of officers, just like in George Floyd's case, you have a bunch of officers who are making no attempt at that point to arrest the guy. Their only goal is to subdue the guy, if not, harm the guy, so to speak. At any given time, you got 4 guys on the back of George Floyd. You only mainly see one, but there are camera angles of the other side of the vehicle. There were 3 other officers on top of George Floyd. Nobody's grabbing his legs. They could have put him in shackles, hog-tied him. Nobody's trying to grab a hand and put behind his back or anything. They're just sitting on the guy. Same thing with the Rodney King case. Nobody's reaching for his hands to put hand. They're just beating the guy. Now, Rodney King, all of those guys were acquitted. So no matter how obvious something looks, they are police officers, and there is a significant amount of the public that gives police officers a wide berth in how they handle criminals. So it would not surprise me, or probably anyone else, if these officers got off, which is why they have the National Guard and things like that. And it's also, like I mentioned earlier, why that officer is probably pleading not guilty and taking this to trial, is because they are hoping that they get members on the jury who are willing to give officers the benefit of the doubt and a wide berth in how they handle criminals. I do not think a citizen caught on video doing this at all would ever take this to trial, unless the prosecutor was just giving them an offer that was horrible. We're going for 40, 50 years, or we're going for life. We got you on video, so we're not going to allow you to plead to anything lower. Then, you got to take it to trial. There's nothing to lose. But in most cases, you would definitely try to get your attorney to plead guilty in a case like this, and hopefully get 15, 20 years or something where you could one day get out. But you wouldn't want this as a citizen to go before a courtroom where people can watch you spend 9 minutes suffocating the life out of somebody. As a citizen, you're going down for that, I would assume, well over 90% of the time. But as a police officer, like I said, wide berth, you got a genuine bad guy under your knee and all of that, and people just do not have the same sympathy for that. So I would close this video out by just simply asking you, what do you think the outcome might be versus what do you think the outcome should be? Do you think my analyzation is way the hell off? You think it falls somewhere in the spectrum of where yours is, or did I not say enough? So I would love to hear your comments on it. Like I said, the jury selection starts today, March the 8th, and they are expecting it to be in these stages of the opening statements, so things will be underway. They're expecting by March 29th. Finding an impartial jury could be difficult, so it would not surprise anyone if it actually took longer than March 29th, because they are going to be trying to make sure the jury is certainly containing some minorities. That's been a problem throughout history, as African Americans being tried by juries that had few minorities on the bench. Now, there's a fair bit of diversity in Minneapolis, so they should be able to find minority jurors. Women tend to be more sympathetic to stuff like this versus men. So I'm assuming that the prosecutors would want to have some females on the jury as well. But how our society is going right now. They're going to, from the prosecution standpoint, they're going to probably be going against white males. I mean, I'm not going to say it's right, I'm not going to say it's wrong, but I understand why they're going to try to do it. And the defense is obviously going to want white males on the jury, the defense of those police officers. But yeah, go ahead and drop in the comments. What do you think? Tell me where I got it wrong. Tell me where I'm screwing up. Tell me where you might feel, like I said, what I'm saying is in the realm of what you believe. And we will go from there. As usual, like I said, like, comment, subscribe. I do respond to all of the questions in my queue. If your comment or your criticism, your compliment is strong enough, we might just make another video on that. But until then, this is an issue we will be talking about because it will drag out, and I'm assuming more things will come out. They'll probably try to squeeze in negative things of George Floyd's past throughout this. I believe the officer, Derek Chauvin, has tax evasion issues or something like that in his past as well. Does he have any other claims of misconduct? That might actually be, in my opinion, more relevant of that officer's prior conduct in bringing up something that George Floyd did back in 2007. But let's see how that comes out. I'm sure there are some on the left who might view my video and simply get pissed off that I brought up George Floyd's past at all. But I'm just bringing it up because I do believe that if you're sitting on that jury and you're looking at a guy who broke into a woman's apartment or you're discussing, because he's dead, you're discussing an individual that broke into somebody's house with a gun, the home of a woman, and threw a pistol at her face, you may not give a damn that he got killed by police, even if it was 13 years later. So that will be in somebody's head. I'm just letting you know that. So yeah, like I said, like, comment, subscribe. I will end this here, and I look forward to talking to you again. Your boy Chicago, out.